Hi, I'm Sophia Galati, and I am doing Case H, which is the stress of business travel. It's from Chapter 7, and it pertains to the stress of the traveling and all the pressures associated with being away from the office and traveling for work. The case asked me to address 3 questions that I'll cover over the course of my presentation. The first one is, what can an organization do to reduce the stress facing a business traveler who's returning away from being away from the office for 60 days. The second one is, what are some of the potential stress problems of taking cheaper flights, and what stressors can exist even prior to actually taking the trip. A little bit about the background of the case. The article reported that over $200 billion are spent annually on travel expenses. So in order to start pinching pennies, big companies such as Cisco Systems, Lucent Technologies, Microsoft, and Walt Disney have slashed travel budgets. From an outsider's perspective, this probably seems like a great idea. On the books, I mean, the companies are saving big dollar amounts, and just overall profiting more from the savings. But I don't think they're taking into consideration the loss of productivity from each of the employees after, posting them up in these hotels that are less than accommodating. So let me discuss what a decreased travel budget means for these employees. A dining budget, it forces employees to stretch their dollar, and that just typically leads to unhealthy food choices. And generally, it's sad to say, but you get more bang for your buck the cheaper the food. Budget hotels, less amenities such as workout facilities, restaurants, and convenience shops. Again, kind of probably seems a little frivolous or excessive at times, but these are things that help employees to de-stress while they're on travel. I mean, there's not a whole lot to do. They're not surrounded with their families. They're strictly there for business, and they just need some time to unwind for themselves. And budget hotels typically don't have those amenities. Cheaper flights, employees are faced with more delays, lost luggage, poor accommodations, and less room to work while on flight. I'm going to discuss this a little bit further and what that means. Again, cheaper hotels increases the opportunity for general irritants, sleep disruption, and overall noise. Doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but when an employee's, their schedule is based on the hour, every hour, they're in meetings all day long, they need every ounce of energy that they can muster up. And these hotels aren't designed for businessmen and women, so they're not going to accommodate one person when there's multiple families in a hotel with kids that are probably, being responsible for the noise level and things like that. The service level is going to be lower, so there's not going to be a concierge desk. There's not going to be anybody really there to help them to travel around the area that they might not know very well. And eliminating those perks just forces the employee to take time away from their work and, find a map or find directions and things like that usually are taken care of for them. Cheaper flights. Although first class and business class, again, can seem excessive, it allows for more room for these employees to stretch out, hold their, have their business, their paperwork, things that they can be working on while on flight. That's a couple hours of precious time that they're spent being traveling. And if they're stuck in coach, there's really no room to work, and it's just more of a stressful situation. These companies should be really concerned with doing the most that they can to take the stress off the employees when they're requiring them to be away from their families and being away from what they're used to. Again, companies are seeing the books and the numbers go down, but they're not taking into consideration that lost time that the employee probably isn't going to pull out their laptop when they're in coach versus when they're in business class and they had a little more room to work. It just leads to lost productivity. Along with that, those little perks that I just discussed could be seen as excessive. I mean, they just help reduce the stress of being away from home, enjoying a decent meal, having a good workout, things that just put an employee at ease while they're away from home. They're just not possible with decreased budgets. Just a couple of things after discussing, what a decreased travel budget can cause on an employee, like the added stress. There can also be existing stress before that employee even leaves for this business trip that companies probably aren't taking into consideration. For example, family, there could be problems with their family, like their spouse, their children, extended family, their parents. They could be fighting a disease or an illness. An extended family member or a close family member could be fighting an illness that can be concerning them or consuming their time and their thoughts. They could be expecting a child. I mean, those are things that companies don't take into consideration, but should accommodate to a reasonable degree when they're traveling, or at least keep it in mind. Generally, business trips are extremely planned down to the hour, leaving little or no control to the employee. They have an itinerary and they have places that they need to be at that time and when they're required to be there, and that just leaves little to no control. So here's some suggestions on how that employee can cope. Just taking your time for yourself. Find a Starbucks, have a cup of coffee, relax, unwind, read the newspaper. Maybe that means getting up 30 minutes earlier and just having a cup of coffee in the hotel lobby by yourself. Exercising. Although we talked about budget hotels not being accommodating, you can go for a run or a walk. I'm sure there's local parks and things like that around the area that they're staying. It just helps keep you refreshed and better for your overall health. And a healthy attitude. Again, a lot of these things are out of the employee's control, and it's better to just adapt a positive attitude and help to remind yourself that you can only control things that you can control. And one suggestion was to create a mantra that you can use in an overwhelming or stressful situation. Just remind yourself, everything's going to be okay, you'll get through it, and it'll be just another day. And the last suggestion is to plan ahead. With these slashed budgets, I'm not sure exactly, how much work is going to be done for that employee before they leave. Typically, their business trip is planned, and like I said, they're supposed to be somewhere at a certain time, and they just show up. And with these slashed budgets, who knows how much help they're receiving from their assistants or their secretaries or things like that. So just plan ahead. Do your own research, help yourself out, find ways to prepare yourself before you get there. And how to help. When an employee is returning from an extended trip, there's some recommendations that can be made for the office to help prepare for their return. One example is to eliminate any in-office distractions. Everybody's probably either excited to see an employee upon their return, or just maybe they've had questions that they haven't been able to get answered, things like that. All of these things can cause employees to just overwhelm and bombard the returning employee, and we really need to eliminate that. Within their first week, let them come back, get accustomed, answer emails, just get back into the swing of things in the office. Another suggestion would be organize a staff meeting. This will just help the employee feel less lost and out of the loop, and just address any policies that might have changed, or any guidelines that have been improved, or introduce new employees. Anything that may have changed while they were gone needs to be addressed in these meetings. I mentioned before that the employees should do a lot of research on their own, because you don't know how much their company is helping plan their trip and things like that, but it would help immensely to help plan, when that employee is leaving for a trip. Give them at least a list of close restaurants, close entertainment ideas, whether that be that they need to take them to the client to a nice dinner, or whether that be that they need to find a restaurant for themselves that their budget allows them to have. And, rental cars, flights, things like that all need to be addressed. So with that being said, that's Case H, and